Oh, there you go.
Yeah. Cool. We'll just let a few people come. They're just all signing up. Hey, Jane. Hey, Shiz.
Hello, how are you?
Good, good. How are you?
Good, thank you.
And hey, Kushla. Geez, Gwil, I'm just going to, no pressure, but this is the most we've ever had. And
That's good news.
Poor Gwil's got COVID. The things we do at here at Chameleon.
Yeah, put our bodies on the line, don't we?
Yeah. Cool. Okay, I'm gonna I'll open up the lines, eh? Oh, Chris, long time no chat. Hello.
Hi.
She's on mute. She's there. Yeah, cool. I'm just gonna let everyone in, team. Wow, half these people don't even know. This is so exciting, Gwil. I just need to put your name on something and people turn up.
I'm sure it's just a novelty, Reese.
Yeah. Good afternoon.
Good
Jeez,
afternoon.
Hey, Mike, we've got quite the turnout today. This is lovely. As I was just saying to Gwil, all I need to do is put his name on one of these invites, and a good chunk of our database turns up. So this is great. It looks like we've got a couple of people still to arrive. So we'll just admit those. Cool.
Thank you.
If it's okay, team, I'm just gonna mute everyone. Will you unmute yourself, buddy?
Sweet.
Good. You're allowed to talk. Okay. Well, we're 3:02. Usually I like to start slightly late because I'm usually not on time, but we're 3 past now, so we're going to get underway. So you're all on mute. That doesn't mean that you're not allowed to talk. I was just hearing a bit of background sound, so I just thought we'd go on mute to begin with. Thank you so much for joining us. So great. We've still got people coming. So great to see such a good turnout. Maybe it's the sunny weather that, well, it's definitely a little bit of sun here in Christchurch, which is a little strange. But maybe it's the sunny weather that's made everyone turn out. Although, Chris, you were in a beanie, so Melbourne must be cold, yeah? Yeah, cool. Okay, fabulous. So I'm lucky enough to be joined by one of my esteemed colleagues, Gwil, and I'm going to get him to pronounce his name correctly in a moment, because I sometimes call Gwil Gwillatine, but he's going to pronounce his name. It's a Welsh name, I believe, isn't it, Gwil? So I'll let you do that in a moment, mate. But really appreciate Gwil joining us today, because he's actually got COVID. So the rest of his family is a little bit unwell, and we've brought Gwil in off his COVID bed to have a chat today. So I really appreciate you being here with us, buddy. I know your family's a little bit unwell. It sounds like I'm a real hard person, like driving you to come along. I did give him the option of backing out, so really appreciate it. So but yeah, keen to over the next sort of 40 minutes or so to pick Gwil's brain on everything visual design. As a team, we were really excited and really pumped for Gwil to join the team. We'd watched Gwil's design from afar, and he was just the man that we wanted to bring on the journey with us. And yeah, no regrets looking back at all. He certainly added a lot to our team, to the product, but also for everyone he touches in our community as well. He's definitely adding a lot of value on that front as well. So I've done a big job of pumping your head up here, Gwil. So you better deliver here, buddy. but yeah, keen to pick Gwil's brain on everything visual design, get his thoughts on where visual design is going in the learning space, also how it obviously applies in the world of Chameleon. But we might even start and just rewind the clock a little bit and go back to Gwil's earlier days in a moment and just sort of understand how he ended up in this career as well. So how do I pronounce your name, Gwil? Can you say your name for everyone on the call?
Yeah, mate. In full, it's Gwilym.
And where's that from? It's Welsh, isn't it? Am I right in saying that?
It's just Welsh for William, so
Right. And
it's
what's your
very
brother's
common in
name?
Wales.
And what was your brother's name?
Shan.
Shan. Right. Is that Welsh as well?
I think it's Irish.
Irish. Okay. Right. There's some confusion there.
That's a stab in the dark, to be fair.
You don't know, right? It could be Scottish.
Just ambiguous, that part of the world.
Fabulous. Well, thanks so much for joining. And so, your role at Chameleon is what?
The design lead.
Fantastic. How's the voice, by the way? Do I need to give you some water breaks throughout, or are you feeling not too bad?
Nah, I think I'm gonna be all good.
Good.
I've been singing in advance just to get the tubes going, you know.
Okay, well, that's enough of that. We won't continue on that path. Hey, but before we kick off, where were you meant to be going tomorrow? I don't mean to rub salt in the wound, but you had a family plan, didn't you, that you were trying to lead into, and you were trying your hardest not to catch this.
Yeah, so the family, we were meant to go to Vanuatu, my partner and our baby and myself. We no longer can because of COVID, but these things happen. But yeah, it's actually not all my fault, Reese, because George is still testing positive.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so
okay. Good. It's good to see that blame is well and alive in your household like that. Like fabulous. Yeah. Hey, well, just to kick things off, Gwil. Many people have often looked at my my dress sense and its raised some eyebrows over the years. From a design perspective, you're a pretty stylish man at the best of times, and you've come in rocking a pretty great moustache there. What's the most embarrassing fashion trend you used to rock back in the day?
Oh, mate. Well, probably the worst one is I used to have a great big dirty rat's tail. I wanted to, like Luke Skywalker, the one. Yeah, I had the one down here, so I wanted to be like him.
Great. Okay. Well, I wasn't sure where that was going to go, but I didn't think it was going to go there. So I'm glad no longer
times
rocking
are different.
Yeah. Hey, so tell me how long have you been? And a lot of this is new to me, so I'm actually going to really enjoy this conversation. And some of these questions might be a little bit selfish, but how long have you been in the world of design?
I think I graduated 2012.
Okay. And where was that? It was
Massey, yeah.
And when do? Yep.
Oh, and then I guess I jumped into work straight away, but then I've had a few years of traveling and all that kind of thing, but I always come back to it.
And when did you sort of know that? Well, I guess when did you first get into it? Like, was it before you went to uni, and when did you know it was going to be the career for you in the long term?
To be honest, at high school, I don't even think we knew what graphic design was, really. I started doing illustration and I kind of fell into graphic design. It's just kind of how the courses I kind of just went down that way. But I guess once you after 4 years, you're pretty sure what you want to be doing. We should be.
I wasn't.
So yeah.
I ended up lawn mowing. So how do you get it? I'm always interested in this because I've talked to Todd a lot. Todd's our CEO at Chameleon, and many of you have spoken to Todd over our journey. He's often putting beautiful illustrations up on his Insta profile. How do you just stumble across illustration? Like, because I see my little girl illustrating, or giving it a fair crack at home, trying to draw sunflowers this morning before I came to work. Actually, how do you get into illustration? How does that sort of happen?
You mean finding inspiration, or?
Yeah, like how did when did you know you really started enjoying it? Is it just doodling things, or and how did you start to
as a
refine that
baby.
craft as well as a baby?
Yeah. I was obsessed with Ninja Turtles, like, as a baby. Even so essentially from then.
Wow. So
And then
that
as
was
soon
my
as I
problem.
could wield a pen or a pencil, I was just drawing, and never stopped.
Have you got any of those creations still hanging around? Because if you do, we'd love to see some tomorrow on one of our stand-ups.
I'll have to dig around. It's all just ninjas for the first 10 years of my life, and then
great.
Yeah.
No splinter rats.
Nah.
Cool. Hey, and tell me, so I think from looking at your design, it's clear you don't have one particular style, or that you like to go with. Of course, you've evolved Chameleon's design and our style and our look and feel. But where do you get your inspiration from in terms of new trends, new ways of designing? Are there certain blogs, podcasts, books you've read or like to read or stay in touch with?
I think it's definitely hard to stay on top of the trend. The constant thing is to be original or unique, because as soon as you try, follow a trend, you instantly aren't, but being original or unique. But I think personally the best resource I've found for like any design influence would be Behance. It's just a really cool website. It's like it's almost like a social media platform for designers, so that everybody's got their portfolio, their work up, and it's got every creative field in there. So that's huge. But
So
it's great.
what's the website address for that, Gwil? Because I'm sure there's some folks here that be keen to hear about that. Obviously, you can just Google Behance, but is it behance.net from memory?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah,
Right.
it's like you can't not find it if you type in Behance.
Here we go. I think Wilson often plugs. Here we go. Wilson and Tom have plugged behance.net. Thanks for that, gents. So check that out. And it's funny you mentioned Behance. I'm not sure if you've done this on purpose or not, but that's how we actually found you. Is that right?
Yeah. So it
Yeah,
also got me a job.
absolutely. Yeah, we saw some. I'm not sure if many of you know or have heard of Garage Project. It's a craft beer based in Wellington. Gwil was you worked on a lot of their work, didn't you? And that's on your portfolio.
Yeah. That was good. That was a good time.
What's your what do we search for? Do we just search for your name if we want to check your stuff out on Behance?
Yeah, you just search Gwil, GWIL, and I should likely come up, because it's kind of an odd name.
Hey, I'm not judging. I'm not judging.
We're in a safe space.
So to talk to me about a little bit more about the whole, I guess, creating something from an original place. How do you go about that? What do you just sit down with a blank piece of paper, or what sort of inspires you or pushes you in a certain direction?
Yeah, I think, like, generally fresh ideas don't just come out of nowhere. I find, from what I've seen, how other people work, and sometimes how I like to work, is you just find heaps of cool examples of things you like, and you take little bits and pieces of many different things to influences and references from all sorts of places, and then you try use those as your building blocks to create something. As long as you're not copying or following something, like one thing or two things too closely, you can always, I mean, all this great resources out there, and we're naturally influenced by things around us, so we can't help but kind of, almost copy, but yeah, mirror things we see. You just got to try channel it in a different way.
So if you're coaching a young visual designer, and aside from Behance, and you wanted to put some resources in front of them, where else would you point them?
There's a really cool plugin on Google Chrome called Musli, Muzli, and it's just like basically it becomes like your browser setup. So every day that you're like, jump on Google, it's got daily design inspiration, and there's just like every day there's amazing stuff, and in like a wide range of creative fields as well. So it's kind of like a creative news feed. It's really cool.
Oh, great little tip. Okay, I might even
Yeah.
try that myself, because I live in a pretty bland world at the best of times, as you know, and the wider team knows. So so let's talk about let's I guess bring it into the learning world a little bit more now. So something I've picked your brain on numerous times, as I guess try and widen my horizons when it comes to visual design, is let's think about you looking at a blank module, because I know we have customers that often talk to me about this. They've got a blank module, they've got a blank canvas, they don't know where to start. What are the first things you would think about looking at a blank module when it comes to visual design and building the look and feel of that project out?
Yeah, the blank page paralysis it's pretty common. I think it happens to everyone. I think there's a few factors. One, like if your module, if it's for a company, with like, and it's for that company, and they have a specific branding in place. That's always just like step one. How are you bringing their colors, their styling, and how can you incorporate that into the module itself? So start there, button types, the use of outlines. Also, I mean, yeah, branding varies, but if it's not necessarily like a branded module, I'd say think about ways of designing around the purpose of the module. So if it has a narrative, there's a theme, like think about what elements, like colors, shapes, what about those can enhance enhance the objective of what you actually want the module to be about.
Can you share with me? Yeah, can you share with me a bit of an example on that front? Like how would that play out?
Well, I mean, just off the cuff, if you wanted it to be, sort of like dark and mysterious, you would choose a very dark color palette, and you would probably have it quite minimal layout. I think, yeah, I guess it's, yeah, a good question. That's probably not the best example, but you just have to think, yeah, I guess you got to know what you're building. You need to know what you're building content-wise before you think about the style, and then the style has to be a support mechanism to the content, not the other way around.
Sure. Yeah, I think I'm picking up on what you're throwing down here. So essentially, it's pushing a little bit further, isn't it, than just using your look and feel or color palette or brand guidelines, and it's starting to really think about the theme or the underlying story that you're trying to create or tell for the learner. Yeah.
And if you don't actually necessarily have like a strong theme or narrative, and you don't need to apply branding to it, and you just want you're just lost and you just want to apply some kind of visuals, generally just go back to inspiration, find some cool examples, and take little bits and pieces like button styles and whatever you like, and then just start applying them to your module, and you sort of got to play around and have a bit of fun with it too. Often in that kind of way, you can stumble across like a cool result you might not have anticipated.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I think like without naming names, and you're not allowed to chuck me under the bus here, Will. But are there any, I guess, common mistakes or or things that people can improve on that you see in modules quite often, where it could just be a minor improvement that could have a pretty drastic impact on the end result, on how something looks visually? Like, is it about using different colors or not using particular colors together, or is there any sort of tips you can provide us on that front?
I mean, not necessarily on other. I think there's some key factors. You've got to have like consistency is a massive one.
Mm-hmm.
So like you're talking about blank page paralysis, but say you get past that, you've decided, you've found the color palette you like. You've got some supporting assets like graphics or illustrations or photography or whatnot. But once you've sort of made those decisions, you've got to keep that consistent. I think the module, and I think visually it looks better, but also from like with learning it helps as well. If the style's shifting throughout the module, it can be quite jarring.
Yeah,
I think we as humans like repetition. You like to see a consistency in how things, how we fed things.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. So, because that sort of leads me nicely into another question I was hoping to chuck your way, and that was is around how do you apply design in a module from a UI standpoint, but when it comes to Chameleon, to make it more engaging, to make it more effective.
Yeah, well, Chameleon, I guess, it does a lot. It makes a lot of these initial decisions for you, probably without having to think about it. Like alignment is a big thing. It's a big visual factor that can make something look like very unprofessional or professional. Just clean alignment, and because there's like preset interactions, they're balanced. There's like good alignment. The proportions are quite good. They're like a lot of these decisions. They're done before you've even started.
Yep.
You're allotted your areas to work within, and you have the ability to move them. But it's set, and I think that helps a lot to get the ball rolling. And even I think they're broken up in a way where you're not overloaded, so each page is not going to get packed with too much information. It's like making sure that it's like digestible amounts of content each interaction, each time each page.
Yeah, it's an interesting point you touch on there with the natural constraints that the team have built into the platform to nudge people or assist people to not put these huge chunks of content in modules. Is there anything we need to think about when it comes to mobile design as well?
Well, the program, like Chameleon's responsive, so it just everything's designed to account for mobile. I mean, normally, yes. Like in any time you're designing something, you've got to consider that if it will be viewed on mobile. But yeah, everything is kind of preset up in a way which it adapts.
Yeah, it's I think it's one of the pitfalls we come across is sometimes people make some absolutely banging content that looks awesome on desktop, and they push it out there because they think, the majority of the audience might be desktop focused. There's still a small component of that audience that does look at their learning on mobile, and it can be a bit of a mistake not to look at what that content's going to look like on a mobile screen as well. So I guess a bit of a tip right across the board is to make sure you bring up your modules, on a mobile, on a tablet, on a desktop, just to make sure that just to make sure it looks great across all devices.
100%.
Hey, we've just been fired a couple of questions, Gwil. I'm going to ask them of you if that's okay.
Sure.
Chris has asked. Now I didn't quite see when you put this question in there, Chris. So if you can help me out on that front, but she's asked if there's any visual examples that we can show. So if that is, I just wonder if that's of good practice or bad practice or a particular design element we were discussing. Here she comes. She's coming in hot.
Yeah, just good practice stuff. I think if there's any, I suppose like you said, there is really good limitations to what you can do in there in terms of the alignments or setup and that sort of stuff, which is awesome. But I just thought if you've got any examples of where people have got creative in a really good quality way that suits that learning experience that, to highlight, that might be really awesome to see. I know we're just talking about a module at the moment, and the GD's done this brilliant splash page for the home page. The problem is if you look at it in mobile view, you only get like a person's arm, so you've actually missed the whole picture. So there's kind of one of the things I find, so I'm really glad you made that point, Reese, is like we say it's responsive, so people assume everything will resize, but actually it doesn't. You have to be thoughtful and check it in that mobile view, especially the more creative your imagery and stuff gets, I find, where it's like pushing the outer edges of the pages. But yeah, I just thought if there's any other good examples that you have to show, you don't have to do it in this session, but even if you send a few out, that would be really awesome. Even using shapes like you mentioned, Gwil, if you don't have branding.
Yeah, I think great question, Chris, and I think we can certainly send you out some examples. On a wee tangent, we are sending out some resources following that will be helpful, but I think some examples will be a practical use as well. I think the use of backgrounds is particularly interesting because we've added a lot of functionality into the platform to assist people to be a lot more creative with the use of backgrounds, having static backgrounds, for example, adding parallax scrolling in as well, adding transparency into various different elements. I know you've done a bunch of work on that front, Gwil, with content cards, for example. But any tips you've got when it comes to backgrounds? And I guess Chris's example is a really good one of the person without an arm all of a sudden. When you crunch that screen down, it's going to be around the using that middle real estate as much as possible if you're wanting to hero a graphic, but not wanting to put words in your mouth, Gwil.
Yeah, well, that's actually a real good example. But I guess when designing say you're designing an interaction and the background you're using that as your feature image, I guess I wouldn't recommend that if there was something you needed to see, because that would happen in a mobile situation. That's just it's just the nature of the beast.
Yeah, the other thing is like, when you text, because everything moves, there was one example in the same module where the text then sits over a different part of the image. So the image is dark and the text is dark. So now you can't read the text.
Yeah.
But I think to your point, Reese, it's just doing that check, right? It's like it looks great on the desktop, looks amazing on the desktop, but once you stick it in that mobile, you do need to rethink because I think I was talking to somebody about this the other day, and the thing with Chameleon is like it's a responsive tool. So we will always say to our clients, are we designing mobile first? That's one thing, and that's completely different. And so you have to think a different way for mobile first, as opposed to why are we using a responsive tool? Are we using it because it's a really great, easy authoring tool, or are we using it because you need responsive learning, in which case we really need to make sure we're doing that check on the mobile either way, you know what I mean? Like to still make sure,
point.
even though we're optimizing for desktop, we want to make sure a mobile user, you know, can still read everything and doesn't get like, you know, a lesser experience.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Yeah, I can't stress enough that just simple test. Bring it up on your mobile, use the preview link. You can right click, not inspect element, but it's the I'll send you through a quick link to that afterwards, but it's a nice little tool where you can, using your desktop, you can see what your learning is going to look like on, you know, an iPhone 8, an iPhone 13,
oh, that's amazing.
A Samsung S6 or S5. Like it's a really neat piece of kit that can certainly help you out as well without having to jump around devices.
Oh, that's great.
I might even show that right at the end because I do have a quick module I want to shoot through. Good, yeah, thanks, Chris. Great question. There's a couple of others. Tania from LGNZ, are there any rules around using both photography and graphics / I guess illustration as well to add to that, Tania, within the same module? I think this is a really good question, Gwil, and I've got a follow-up for you as well.
Well, I think for one, these rules are not necessarily
The rules.
They can be broken.
Yep.
They're just guides. I think, so if it's consistent, if you have a consistent style of image and a consistent style of graphical illustration that are used throughout the module, as long as it's kind of consistent, it looks like part of it. It's only when it's, you know, one's like a dramatic photography and then the next page is like a naive illustration, and then the next page is real science style infographics. You're sort of a little bit confused. So as long as I think there's some sort of cohesion between them and the rest of the branding, and that's sort of just a bit of a gray area where you need to be comfortable with it yourself, I think. But generally, if it's for branding of the company, like that should be established, and that can be really helpful, following the guidelines. Thanks,
good. And a follow-up question there, and this is from a personal standpoint. I sometimes get challenged when we're demonstrating modules that we've created at Chameleon, which have quite a heavy illustrative feel to it, and there are times we get the feedback to suggest that, oh, this looks great, but we're not a fan of the cartoon style, which I guess is another way of describing illustration. What are your thoughts on the use of illustration in quite a highly sort of corporate focused environment?
Oh, there's definitely ways. I mean, it depends. Yeah, it all depends on the type of brand you're doing it for. But if it's just like a standalone thing and you want it to look corporate, generally minimal is safe. Something that's like quite very stripped back, just minimal, often quite linear, or just like simple but graphic shapes. It generally looks a bit more kind of
professional, corporate.
In that yeah.
Right. I thank you. Yeah, again, a little bit of a selfish question there, but I know we work with lots and lots of brands who have, you know, a slightly more corporate feel to their look and feel. So yeah, it's something definitely for us to, I guess, consider and think about. Question from Nicole. This might be a quick one, or it might be something we come back to. And Cherie's keen to hear about this too. Are there any courses you know about, Gwil, online from the various different, websites and course libraries or online learning platforms for someone who wants to get into graphic design?
Do you mean as in doing get into it just to upskill or career change situation?
I don't know. I'm not sure. Are you looking for a career change, Nicole, or is this more about upskilling? Here she comes.
Hi.
Hey, Nicole.
Probably more about upskilling.
Okay.
Like I really love the design side of things.
Awesome. Well, to be honest, yeah, I think a lot of people are scared of it, but we all sort of just do it anyway. With everything that you do, you're putting considered thought into it. You're sort of designing it, whether you're a graphic designer or not. I think one of the best things would just like YouTube is a great resource. You just look up, say, principles of design or something, and generally there's someone who does like a real great breakdown. Like I'd go on right now and I'd probably learn a whole lot. Yeah, but in terms of an actual course, I'd have to get back to you. But I think there's just so much free resource out there that you don't need to look too hard, and you'll be able to find some useful tips. But really, it just comes down to I think it just comes down to a series of things to consider when like placing information, and once you're considering those, it just, for example, like hierarchy, balance, proportion, emphasis, and then you sort of just start applying those to your work, and yeah, it's just a gradual thing.
So they sound like more like, I guess, principles, design principles, and thinking about how applying those to learning. Is that what you're suggesting there?
Yeah. I mean, I
cool.
guess, yeah, find out what they are, and then learn about them, and then you'll just I think you'll just naturally start to apply them to your work.
Yeah, there is a course, Nicole, and it escapes me right now, but I know who to ask following this. So I'll get a hold of that and shoot it through as well. It was more around illustration, but I know that they had a suite of other courses as well that I guess married up to that or in the same sort of family. So I'll let you know of that one and everyone else if you're keen to. There's also a really good read. Sorry, Nicole.
What I was meaning, like that illustration. I guess that's more what I was meaning is like that element side of things, like creating your own images.
Oh yeah.
Vectors and things like that.
Neat. Yeah, the course I'm thinking about would be perfect for that. Tom has just posted a link to Creative Live, which is similar to Masterclass, if anyone's heard of that, but more focused just on creative disciplines. So definitely check that out. And Matt has also, and I've seen there's been a bunch of people like that, so there must be some big fans of that one. Matt has also put a course or a link into refactoring UI, and I've had a quick look at that while Gwil was discussing these last couple of points, and it looks really great too. So thanks for sharing that, Matt. I'm going to check that out myself. Some great insights into there. Tania has a question. Skillshare. That's the one I was thinking about. Thank you, Sherry. It's Skillshare. That's where those courses were. So check that out, Nicole, for that illustration course. I'll see if I can track down the actual one that I've seen people go to or use recently, and I'll send that through to you as well. Tania's got a question around backgrounds, Gwil. The concerns around accessibility for some folks. Tanya, can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, sure.
Thanks,
I
Tanya.
just sometimes I hesitate about putting backgrounds in instead of just a plain white, just purely because some people with visual issues can, yeah, it can be difficult for them. So it's either, I suppose you can have a background, but then a white box or something in front of it. I don't know. Is that something that you guys think about when you're designing and thinking about those background images?
Yeah, I think, yeah, it's a great point. Yeah, I mean, it comes down to contrast, really. As long as there's enough contrast between, you know, everything that's in the foreground and everything in the background image. But you are right. Sometimes you may need to have white box or a plain box around your text, and then you can get away with like a louder background. But generally, I would avoid backgrounds that are extremely busy, just as a rule of thumb, unless it's like just a hero page with a little bit of text, because generally the imagery is going to clash with the content.
Yeah, and one thing we've got in the platform, there's another resource we can share with you. But if you are using an image that is not super busy, like Gwil's just, I guess, recommended against, but if it's still got a little bit going on, you can have a play with the opacity settings and put a dark overlay over top of that background image, and then bump the opacity down or up, however you want to think about it. But essentially adding a bit more contrast to it and making that stand out as well.
It's a good tip, Reese.
Yeah, I don't have many, Gwil. I don't have many. That's why you're here. But I think this is a fabulous question, Hayley, because we've talked about this a little bit in the past to a few different organisations. Any tips on creating a learning series brand from concept? So, for example, they've got an organisational brand, but they're working on creating a leadership brand as a subset of that, I'm assuming. I guess it's evolving the brand and pushing it along a little bit further to having a leadership brand that's a subset of that.
Yeah. So we've definitely got our own brand guidelines. Now we're working on creating a whole leadership series of online learning, and so we're kind of having difficulty even just coming up with the verbal descriptors of how we want it to look and feel. But then when we do have those verbal descriptors, how to move that through to the visual design. So I'm just wondering if there's a process there, or any tips or tips would be welcome.
So it doesn't have to look similar to the other brand.
It would just
can be its own thing.
Yeah, it can be its own brand with elements of the organizational brand, if that makes sense. Like include organizational logo maybe, but other than that, yeah.
I mean, sometimes you can, I guess, whatever makes this brand different to the other brand is probably what makes it unique. So I guess you want to think about, you know, what's different about this, and then when you break down that difference, you can start to think about, you're going to think about it as a person, even like, what does that person look like? What kind of colored clothes do they wear? What type of clothes do they wear? I don't know. You can kind of be a little bit playful with it, or imagine it as a car. That can help get the ideas flowing. But it all really just comes down to, once you pin down like what it is and why it's different, you can start kind of trying to load a little bit of a story or meaning behind that, and then pair colors, pair imagery, or like style to suit that, which I know is not necessarily that easy, but it might just be a bit of like a few brainstorming exercises and getting a few opinions.
Okay.
And you'll start getting somewhere, I think.
Yeah, there are a few little nuggets in there that I picked up on, Gwil, that I loved, and I see Chris has picked up on this as well, about thinking of your learning brand as a person, or I guess something closer to my heart of thinking of it as a car. So I thought, yeah, an interesting way of focusing on that. And yeah, Chris has made a good point. Learner opinion is important too, so it should align to I guess your culture and values as an organization at the same time. Kushta has also just put
Wish
in
I'd said that.
yeah. No, I think you took us on that path with talking about cows and people. And Kushta has shared a really good resource on checking color contrast. So webaim.org/resource contrast checker. Yeah, and Chris is just saying she just fed off you, Gwil. So yeah.
Yeah, touche.
Yeah. Hey, so we've ticked over time, and geez, that's flown by for me the last 45 minutes. If you've got any follow-on questions from the session, we're going to be in touch shortly with a couple of really useful resources. One is a bit of a template that Gwil has whipped up that he uses to create other templates for other organizations. So we're going to shoot that through to you all, and you feel free to use that to create your own template within Chameleon. We've also got a useful resource when it comes to using imagery in the platform as well. So that's talking about the types of images, the size of images, the image layout. So that will be super useful. And then in the next couple of weeks, I think it's the next couple of weeks, all going to plan. We've got a new ebook that we're sharing, and the whole focus of that is all on visual design and how you can apply that in the learning space. Really exciting piece. I've read an early draft, and it's a fabulous piece of resource, if I don't say myself, and I didn't have anything to do with it, so I can say that. Gwil has shared some words of wisdom. And we've partnered up with Amanda over at Canva, and she's shared some really, really interesting insights as well. So excited to send you that in the next couple of weeks. But thank you so much for joining us, Gwil. I really do appreciate it. You've come off your COVID bed, mate, and shared some of your valuable nuggets. So thank you, sir. Go and take care and get a lemon honey drink into you shortly.
Thanks so much, Reese.
Cool.
And cheers,
Thanks.
everybody, for listening.
Yeah. Thanks,
Bye.
team. Have a wonderful afternoon, and we'll talk to you all soon.
Bye.
Cheers.
Thank you.